Good morning. Oh, why can't I?
Good morning.
I can hear you. I thought it was me.
Oh, I think I was on mute. Let's see. We got some folks joining. Good morning. Got Maureen and Chris joining, which is a great start because I think we are already at quorum. And we got Kate. Fantastic. Good morning, everyone. How's it going?
Fantastic.
Not too bad.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
I
Teach.
did just a point of clarification. I spoke to Terry this morning about voting, and we all have to individually vote because it's virtual. When we do vote on something, we have to say our name and how we vote and stuff like that.
Okay.
Just as a point of clarity, we have to, because it's virtual, it's a little different than an in-person meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Nate. I think our next I think the next time we'll be voting will be Wednesday.
Yeah, well, we have to vote to recess, and then we have to,
Okay.
we have to go through all that process today. So,
Okay. Thank you.
correct.
That's helpful.
So once we do that, we just have to each say our name and how we vote so that it can be transcribed correctly.
How do you know all this, Nate? I'm very impressed.
It's I have no idea.
Good for you.
But it's a kind of a baptism by fire of sorts. But at the same time, just working to figure it out as we go.
Nice.
Good morning. Are we live or should we?
We're live, we're recording.
You need to call to order.
Good morning, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order.
Could real quick, sorry to interrupt. When you call to order and when you end the meeting, would you mind stating the time? Because I need to include that.
I don't mind. I don't
Yeah.
mind. So it can be transcribed correctly.
Yeah.
Good morning. It's 10:02 a.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Belchertown Branding Committee to order. I'd like to ask for everyone in attendance to say their name and say present at this point.
Maureen McGarrett Hall, present.
Chris Martin, present.
Molly Robinson, present.
Okay.
Danielle Amadeo present, not a voting member, but here.
Okay. So today we're going
we got a couple more.
Oh, sorry.
Madhawk Frencho, present, not a voting member.
Yes. It's Kate. Kate.
Okay,
Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Present.
Is that everybody?
Yep.
It's everyone.
Okay. So we at this point, we don't have anything to discuss except we're going to put ourselves in recess until we reconvene at 11 a.m.
Yep.
And so,
well, I'll just remind folks that our first interview is with Magnifico, and I'm going to share the interview questions. I don't know if anyone would like to decide, maybe we can decide on who wants to ask what questions in 2 minutes. Because we voted and approved those questions.
Just a reminder, I am unable to question today, but I can in future interviews.
Great.
Yeah, that would be helpful to know. I assume we're going to go in order and ask like the headline question and then maybe the follow-ups if we feel like they haven't been answered, within the category. Is that the approach?
Yeah, that's fine. Actually, pulling up the questions still.
So I'll put the questions in the chat for everyone. And I'm making a specific document for each individual. So this will be for our first one, which is Magnifico, and then I'll make copies so that we can have a document for each.
Is that because you're going to take notes within it for each?
I'll take notes within it. We are also recording, so we'll have it, but yeah, I'll take some notes within for each just so that folks who couldn't attend can see it quickly if they don't want to listen to the whole recording. So who would like to ask the understanding and vision question?
Sure, I can do it.
Okay. Belchertown context.
I can take that one.
Community engagement and adaptability.
I can do that.
Okay. Deadline management and collaboration. I'm happy to ask a question if you'd like.
Like collaboration and deadline management is all yours.
I'll do it. Twist my arm, why don't you?
Well, project manager,
Yeah.
And commitment to inclusion and town representation.
Nate, are you gonna be there?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Why don't you take that one then?
I can ask that question.
All right, great. So I will just make copies of this for each, and then we can change who is asking those questions based on who joins the other sessions if needed. Okay. So we have our order. We'll be back at 11 for Magnifico. We'll recess again until 3 for Swoon.
Okay. And so we'll ask all the questions. Magnifico will leave the meeting, will allow public comment, and then we will discuss for a few minutes. Is that, and do the scorecard?
Yes, I
Okay.
think we can do the scorecard, which I'll add to each. I'm going to make folders for the comments and the scorecard.
Okay. Thanks.
I don't know if we can require anyone to leave, but I think say like we're done asking questions, you're free to go.
Okay.
You're going to open for public comment. I think they're allowed to stay if they would like to stay.
Okay.
Right?
It is open to the public, so yes,
We can't like kick them out of the meeting, but
no.
I don't know that, if
So Nate, as chair, you get to decide, how long public comment lasts for, whether or not it actually happens. It's on the agenda, so I think we kind of have to let it happen. But I think you sort of set the tone for public comments and control how that goes.
Right. So we have in our there's that 10-minute. There's 5 or 10 minutes. We've got 5 or 10 minutes allotted in each. Based on our own internal discussions.
We had voted for 5 minutes of public comment followed by 10 minutes of committee discussion.
Right. It just doesn't say that on the agenda, and that's, I don't know whether we need to put a point of clarity in there or not.
I think we just need to state it at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah. So let's stick with that. That would keep us on task and on time. And I think that's important for just time wise today.
And if nobody shows up to say anything or to ask questions, then we can say, well, it's, count to 10, it's closed, and then move on with the discussions.
Right. And then never mind. We should be all set. So who would like to introduce Magnifico to the group when they come in?
I can do that. I've been communicating with folks by email, so I'll just welcome them, introduce them to the committee. And I think in the interest of time, I'll say like these are the representatives from the committee, and each of you can introduce yourself before you ask your question. If that makes sense. We'll say we're gonna dive right into questions, and folks will introduce themselves as they go, if you're okay with that. Or we can go around robin and share name and role before starting.
Okay. And can you email the questions so that unless you're going to put them on the screen?
Yes, I will email them. I'll also, for accessibility, I'm going to paste the questions into the chat.
Okay,
but I will, they're in our folder,
okay.
And I will email them to everyone between now and 11. That's helpful.
I will say I did try and print out the scorecard, and it just wasn't, coming onto one page. I don't know format wise if that's able to happen.
This is the graphic design scorecard.
Yes.
I can see if I can play with that and see if I can get it to one page.
That would be amazing. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And when do you expect those to be completed? By voting day, correct?
So we will do each scorecard. We're going to do one scorecard per candidate in our discussion period. We're not each individually doing scorecards for every candidate.
Okay.
So we're doing that as a group discussion?
We're going to do it as a group discussion to simplify things.
Okay.
Otherwise, we would have
that helps out. Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll have an extended discussion period on Wednesday. So we'll review those scores, and if people want to tweak them as an entire group, we can do that as an entire group. But these are going to be preliminary scores based on those who are in the interviews, and then everyone else can watch back the content or read the notes and weigh in the conversation on Wednesday.
That's excellent. Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Nate, do you know if we have to maintain recording during our recess, or if I can pause the recording during our recess? Or Chris or Maud or Terry?
I think Terry can. I'm not certain. I don't know.
But yeah, I see Terry's online, and she would know best. But I believe that we have to leave the recording up because it's a recess. We have to leave it up, and there should be like a notice on screen somehow that just simply says we are taking pause and reconvening at such and such time. So anybody that joins between now and then will see that and know to come back.
Correct.
I have that ready to go.
Okay.
Excellent.
At Branding Belchertown graphic design interviews, Friday, January 31st, 2025. Meeting and recess till 11 a.m. And then that'll change as as our timing changes.
Perfect.
So now, recording, and I only ask that because it will then take a very long time to upload the recording.
I guess the other question is, do we all have to remain in the room, or we can leave the room?
I'm leaving.
Yeah. Okay.
I get another Zoom call.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I believe we could turn off the recording.
We can pause the recording during recess.
We can pause the recording in recess, but we have to leave
the room open. Amazing. Yes. Yeah, that's great.
So that way it's not like a
because we'll have been like 5 hours of recording.
Yeah.
Okay,
so do we vote to go to recess?
Well, I have to ask for a motion to recess. And I'll do that now. Can we have a motion to recess until 11 a.m.?
Are we all ready?
Yes.
All right, then I second that.
So we need to take a vote, and so state your name and vote, how you vote.
Yes, we should recess. This is Molly.
Maureen McGarrett Hall, yes, recess.
Chris Martin, recess.
Nate Shattuck, yes, recess. So moved. So we will be at recess until we call open again at 11 a.m.
And it is 10:14 a.m. now.
Okay.
Thanks,
Great,
everyone.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello again.
Welcome back to committee members. Welcome to our community members. Hello, John. I see you're here. We're going to get started in just 1 minute.
Sure.
Our meeting is currently in recess, and John, just for some context, this is a public meeting, so we called the meeting to order earlier, and we will Nate, our chair, will reopen the meeting at 11.
Okay.
And then we'll get started. We've got 45 minutes for questions with you, and our committee members will ask those questions. And at that point, you're welcome to go. The committee is responsible for having a 5-minute public comment. I don't know if folks will participate in that public comment, but we will open at that time, and then the committee will have a 10-minute discussion, and then we will recess again. So it is 11 a.m. I'll pass it to Nate.
You're on mute.
Good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock a.m. and this is I'm calling the meeting of the Belchertown Branding Committee back to order from recess. I'd like to take a roll call of voting members at this time. If you'd state your name and present.
Kate Nato, present.
Maureen McGarrett Hall, present.
Chris
Molly
Martin,
Robinson. Oh, sorry. Go, Chris.
Chris Martin, present.
Molly Robinson, present.
Nate Shattuck, present. And at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Danielle to introduce our interviewee.
Hi, John. Welcome. Thank you so much for your proposal and submission. The committee was really impressed with your proposal and the work that you do, and it's thrilled to have you here today. As I mentioned earlier, we have several voting members of the Branding Belchertown Committee. We also have some non-voting members and a select board member here and some community members here to listen in on the interview process. We have 45 minutes to move through questions in 5 subject areas. Each person who is asking a question will introduce themselves at the top of the question so that you get to know who all of us are, but that we're keeping things snappy in the interest of time. And once we finish asking those questions, you can ask us questions as well. And then you're free to go, and we'll open for comment and discussion, and then we will recess. Does that process make sense to everyone? Thank you for bearing with us. This is obviously a municipal process, so not a standard interview, but thank you so much for being here. With that, I will pass it over to Chris with our first question.
Hi, John. My name is Chris Martin. I am the clerk for this committee, but the chair of the communication committee in town. So we deal with a lot of the digital branding and stuff like that as well, and communications throughout the town. So this is kind of a big effort from us as well. So I'll go ahead with the first question that we have, or it's a series of questions really. What are your thoughts on Belchertown's current visual identity?
Well, I don't really know how much of an identity there is. I mean, I think that's part of it, right? Like, I think a lot of communities in Massachusetts, New England, around, basically anywhere, they're in this position right now where they might have an old town seal that's maybe been developed decades ago and is out of sync with modern technology, hard to use, hard to print, all of that. And that's just talking about a formal design element, but in terms of a brand and what people perceive of that particular place, brand with a capital B, as we say, I think it's sort of unknown. small community, maybe, next to other slightly larger communities can sometimes get overlooked. I know personally, me growing up on the North Shore, I have strong connections where I live, in Newburyport, and, growing up here in the area, when I worked with the city of Amesbury, that was definitely that was a question that sort of came up. Well, what is Amesbury's identity? And a lot of people in conversation, the little sister of Newburyport. It's next door. People tend to forget about it. We don't get the same sort of traffic in terms of tourism and businesses. But beyond that, I think all those little, communities, there's stories to kind of uncover. And, I think part of what I'm excited about for this particular project is to figure out what that is, so I can, partner with you guys to help tell that story.
Excellent. And so speaking of that, how do you see the role of graphic design in fostering a sense of identity and pride within a community, especially in a municipal setting like Belchertown? Are there any ideas or concepts that you might consider exploring for this project?
All the ideas. Yeah, no, I think, graphic design, it's communication, at the end of the day, branding, beyond all the marketing mumbo jumbo, I think what you're trying to set out to do is create something that communicates, and is compelling for your constituents, and, a broader audience of maybe people that, are looking for something to do on a weeknight or a weekend or a little vacation, or a business that's thinking about, where we're going to plant our roots and start our company and want to have people work here. Those types of things are, you bring those out through communication, and graphic design is the visual aspect of that communication. So I think it plays a major role. And in terms of concepts, I mean, that's, part, I don't know. I don't have an answer on an interview call of what it could possibly be. And I think by design, that's intentional. I think you want to kind of go into any project, whether it's a municipal branding or designing a restaurant, or an identity for a brewery or anything, with an open mind. And as we get to know each other and have some dialogue, I would plan on doing a workshop in Belchertown. We can touch base with people, members of the community, and really understand, what makes the town tick. I think that's what I am inspired by, to kind of figure out, where we're going to take the design.
So, Kate, you're up.
Hi, so my name is Kate Nadeau, and I'm the communications manager here in Belchertown. And you might have to do a little screen share for this question, but the question is, can you share some examples of your previous work that you successfully navigated the challenges of branding or rebranding for municipality or a rural community?
Put me on the spot here.
Happy to.
Yeah, well, you've seen the proposal, and there's a few examples in there that I think would be great to just kind of reintroduce.
Sure. Pick your favorite.
Yeah. Allow permissions, desktop one. All right, you guys can see.
Yep, thank you.
So yeah, this is probably the closest in terms of what's relevant, in terms of a case study for the work. It's, basically the same type of project. The city of Amesbury had put out an RFP. I responded. They responded back, positively, and the mayor and I actually have a connection from when we were kids growing up in town. I played youth football on the Amesbury Jets. She was a cheerleader. We didn't know each other back then, and we had no idea where we would end up, but it was kind of a great little connection to kind of, start the project and the relationship. But yeah, came to us with this sort of challenge of just trying to create an identity that kind of did twofold. Yeah, putting a moniker out into the world that the city, the people can kind of get behind, establish a sense of pride and place. But I think it also helped them as an organization. They had all these different logos of different parts of the city and different what am I trying to think of? The different aspects, the fire department, the police, the different offices within City Hall. And there wasn't this kind of central, organized, unified communication back out into the world. So there was confusion. Is this an official letter or mail? Where's the voice coming from? So that's sort of the basis for how that project started. And yeah, wow, this is back in 2022 now. But yeah, the whole goal was to unify the vision and the message. So we even worked on a tagline, make history here, kind of using those 3 words, very intentionally, make, because it's a very creative place, the community, history, it's New England, every town has some, relevant history. And here, because it's relevant, but I think it's also when you put those 3 words together, it's not about the past. It's about what you're going to do next. And so that was a powerful message. So, they're proliferating that in things like their website now and some ad campaigns and things like that. But yeah, at the center of the visual identity is this very colorful logo. They like the idea of multiple colors and different aspects sort of coming together. And yeah, represents the diverse community and, a little homage to, they wanted to get away from using like Carriage Town, which is sort of the legacy, known sort of tagline or nickname for the town. But the development of the carriage wheel on the carriage that ended up being a major milestone in terms of the automotive industry is a major part of the history. So a little nod to that with this kind of sun in the background that's almost like the top of a semicircle of a wheel. And there's a great little ravine that kind of goes right through downtown with an awesome waterfall. It's very, very beautiful. So getting a little bit of that kind of river action in there amongst the great green spaces and the brick mill buildings. So all of that kind of in this arch shape that kind of communicates, transition or evokes transition. And just handsome, timeless typography that feels strong and timeless and hardworking. So yeah, the project was really about those, developing those aspects. The different lockups of the logo, I think, was a big part of that, and I think would probably apply to the Belchertown assignment as well. There's going to be instances where a horizontal lockup with limited vertical space, like a website header, you're going to need to see, icon potentially with text next to each other versus a badge, which would look better on a t-shirt. And, different lockups and also the different sort of, sub brands, to use an industry term, of the identity, the different departments, how the logo would translate and scale for the different departments. That was part of this assignment as well. And then just seeing it kind of come to life, like what's the intention, what's the intent of the design, so using the color palette and, in a very clear, intentional way. How does the typography system work on things like signage? and just having some sensibility about, when to do what. So that's sort of something that gets, put, some rules and standards put into a brand guidelines as a deliverable for any type of project like this. And then, the next part of the project is really, once the assets are handed over to the town, making sure those guidelines are clear for whoever is going to be doing the work, the ongoing marketing, and communications, or if there's you know, subsequent project around wayfinding and signage, who's making the signs and what materials are being used and how do you apply the design to that, the kind of, making it real, so to speak, is another, sort of after the project, but it's just as important as developing the concept. So I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but hopefully the eye candy is helpful to kind of, get your brains into the world.
Yeah, it's super, super helpful. So kind of just jumping into the next question, which you've answered a bit already. What specific strategies did you use to ensure your designs were both engaging and representative of the community's ideas or the community's identity? So like you did talk about the different pieces of the logo, but if you want to get into like the different strategies that you might have employed.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, I've been in brand design for about 15 or so years, working on my own for about 12, maybe 13. And there's all kinds of different agencies and studios that have different philosophies around strategy and brand architecture, and then how that influences the actual creative design. In my take, I feel like creative design is strategy. As you put paint on canvas or pen to paper, design ideas can solve problems, which, in some projects there might need to be, large strategic undertakings to, develop brand architecture or, sort of key messaging guidelines, or things like that. But I think what's worked for us, for many of our projects, is that, we start by just being good listeners. And, again, the plan as proposed is, do an all-day workshop with you guys in town, get to know and feel what it's like to have boots on the ground there, talk to people, and, have a conversation around what makes this town special and what does it mean to you. And we'll have specific questions, to kind of uncover some of those things. And then, pretty quickly translate or distill what we hear into some insights that are going to help keep our design exploration within some guardrails. And so that right there, that strategy of kind of, not feeling like, oh, this could literally be anything. We can uncover all these rocks and, look at logos that look like this and, color palettes are like this. Like if we have a clear lane where, hey, this is going to guide us in the right direction, then it's all about just letting, the magic happen in the design within that lane. And, have that, look at the design and feel what feels right, for the town, and develop it from there. If there's, oh, we really like this mark, but, can we see it in some other color palettes? That's totally fine, because color has such a huge influence on how people perceive things. And honestly, to change color is really easy. To come up with a mark that's special and distinctive, those are things that are harder to just kind of, refine and tweak, or come up with new ideas. But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, John. And I just want to interject before our next question for Molly. We have about three more categories of questions to go through. So I just want to flag that we're a little short on time. So Molly.
Okay, I'll try not to ramble. I mean, a lot of my answers might be the same, so I can just kind of repeat that, I guess.
Okay. Hello. Nice to meet you, John. I'm Molly Robinson. I'm a member of this committee as a volunteer, as well as a couple others around culture and creativity in town. And in my day job, I'm a brand strategist for a global consulting firm. So feel right at home here with your answers so far. My question is, kind of, you've touched on this a little bit, but what methods you have employed in past projects to incorporate community feedback into your design process?
I can speak from the Amesbury project specifically. That project started, they had done some upfront outreach. They had surveys, not necessarily specific to the branding project, but more broadly, just trying to get the community's voice in terms of, what they think of the town, and, areas of improvement, things like that. And that was helpful to kind of come into the project with that work already done. I'm not sure how much Belchertown has already done in terms of those efforts. But anything like that would be super helpful as a starting point, and it would help us come up with additional questions to ask up front, for that workshop, in our alignment phase. So I think part of it's up front, like let's ask. I would love to have, 2 to 3 business owners in town to be part of the workshop. I think people, real, like, the coffee shop near, in the square, and people, places where people go, and like the community comes together, places like that. Or if there's like a large employer, like something like that could be interesting and helpful. And then in terms of like having them involved throughout the process, I could tell you, and I think if any of you guys were on the webinar, the MMA webinar, a few months ago when I was with Mayor Go from Amesbury and Caitlin Thayer, the ex-communications director in Amesbury, we kind of mentioned like, hey, like it's amazing to have the involvement, but be very mindful of like too many cooks in the kitchen. And I think I always stress for any type of project, whoever the client is, having a very clear relationship of command, I guess, between the creative team and who the decision maker is in the process. And obviously in municipalities, there's this, kind of democratic approach where you bring in other people. But I think at the end of the day, someone has to be the true decision maker to make that final call. And successful design projects, work when there's that clear conversation and balance of working with that, between those two entities, the creative and the decision maker. But I would say the best time to maybe bring members of the community, the larger community, into the fold would be, after sort of like the round 2 of design, where we've zeroed in on, a direction that we all feel like is representative of the town. And, there might be something like color that we can do like an A/B survey of, to get some thoughts in the room, to have them be a part of the process. But yeah, you'll see, bringing people in a conversation, it can really, it can be sort of a nightmare to manage, and keep a project on track without feeling like, some people just really don't like it. Like that's going to happen. You're going to get comments from half the people are going to think this is amazing and great for the town, and other people are going to be like, what are we doing? Like this is terrible. Like, and that's just how it goes. So I'm prepared for that. Are you?
I don't know if we are. So the next question was about the timeline, which I think you clarified in terms of getting community input. There's front workshop, and then there's like community input after round 2.
Yeah.
So that's pretty clear, I think. But how would you balance your professional design principles and your vision for this work with what you're hearing from the community, their preferences and input?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we need to distill things down, like I think taking commentary at face value, there's going to be so much conflict, like friction between one person's comment and another, that either our heads are going to explode, or we can say, hey, there's some things happening over here and here, but like, where's our vision? What's our shared aspiration for where we want to take this design? Because I think that's, pretty clear, like this is to, like build pride in place and make it an attractive, evoke this place where people would want to go, whether it's businesses, or residents, things like that. But yeah, distilling it down, and just being very very clear about what we are aiming for.
Okay. Thank you. And then the last one for me, how do you handle feedback that may initially contradict your concepts?
What do you mean by that?
It's just like going in a totally different direction, or feeling like the feedback is maybe your design concepts are off brief. Like, how would you handle feedback like that?
Well, hopefully they're on brief. I mean, if they're off brief, then we have a problem. I think the whole idea of the phase 1, alignment, where we're, defining what the vision is, I think that's so that we're all aligned before we even see design. And it hopefully creates this, roadmap or guardrails for what we should be looking at in design. And like from there, I think presenting design in a way that balances making it feel real, and you can kind of put yourself in, try it on for size, with like, still a work in progress and moldable, the moldability of a design, and having conversation to help influence it. I think that's key as well. Like if a design idea is presented and, we like aspects of it, but want to see, how it could evolve. I think that's totally okay. And it's all about getting that feedback, the dialogue going, and, having the conversation. I think, in contrast, like I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want to, just take, feedback from a client and get it in an email that's like, do this. And then, the design team should feel like, well, shouldn't we have a conversation around this? Because anything that we create, there's a reason for it. So having that conversation to kind of hear both sides is always important. Yeah, so again, just, keeping the relationship of command like a natural conversation, so that it feels like a collaboration, I think is the best thing.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. So we're going to dig a little bit more into that collaboration piece. And I'm wondering if you can share more about what your process and strategies are for communicating with clients and how you handle any time or geographic differences if those were to come up. And as a follow-up to that, would love to hear you talk about your own deadline management, time management, and we'll start there, and then we can continue.
Okay. So what was the first question?
So I'm also adding these into the chat. So it's how do you handle communication with clients, and how do you handle any kind of time or geographic differences that might come up, and deadline management.
Right. So communicating with a client. Yeah, I mean, open, email is, great. We use Slack, and we could potentially create a channel where there's, more of an open dialogue to share ideas more freely if we felt like that was something that would benefit the project. And in terms of, geography, what is an hour and a half away, something like that from Newburyport. It's not too far. So yeah, I think, within the scope of work, I mean, it's pretty tight in terms of timing. I think that initial, workshop to kind of kick off alignment is definitely something that, we would, I would travel there and we'd spend the day. I greatly look forward to that, actually. Like, I think that's, such a major part of this project. And I think, having a little bit of that outsider perspective could be good for the project. It's like kind of coming in with real fresh eyes on the town and what I see. I've never been there, so let's, put that out there. So I'm curious, like, well, what is this place? And yeah, but I think also, like, the kind of like greater story of like, how does Belchertown fit into the New England story, I think is a big part of all of these places' identities. So that would be something that, we talk through. But in terms of like, needing to get out there again, I think so much of, modern work is, for better or worse, it's all virtual like we're doing now. So this would be easy to jump on a Zoom or a Slack or a Google Meet, whatever that is, throughout the process, saving everyone time to go into City Hall or, get in their car and commute. So, but yeah, sort of open within the parameters of the project, when we would come out there. And I always like to do, design presentations in person, just to kind of make it feel like you're not, there's this wall in between of the screen. But if, we had to do a virtual one, that's totally fine too. We're flexible.
And can you describe a time where you had to adapt your design to meet unexpected changes or feedback? I know earlier you're planning to not have those come up, but if they do come up, can you describe how you managed that change, and how did that impact your ability to complete your work according to deadline?
So like well, it's a long process. There's different aspects of the process. So I guess hopefully, like in round one, the creative ideas that are shared are, hitting the brief. And if they are, then that's great. I think it's very easy to get from concepts to, we're gonna zero in on one that feels right. And whether that's like, expanding and refining a couple to kind of see them a little further before they make a decision. That's, that could be one way. But when you get to that point, when you're kind of funneling down, like that's where like you're getting closer to your goal. So you wouldn't push it away. You wouldn't push the design outside of that. You'd want to get closer and closer to an approved design. And along the way, there's always going to be, feedback. And if sometimes it's a matter of, taking that feedback and seeing what comes out of it. Like, hey, can we see what this looks like with, this, I'm making this up. Like, can we see what that looks like with a circle around it? And it's like, oh, I don't, the designer might say, I don't think that's going to work, but I would want to look at it first, see if it does work. And, if it's viable, then, we can, compare, against the older version and have a discussion. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Does it impact your ability to work according to deadline?
Oh, deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the deadline's the deadline, right? So I think everyone has to be mindful of that. So if the designer is on brief and presents work on time, and feedback cycles are, probably going to be fairly limiting. If there's a lot of people involved, that's obviously going to take more time to gather people's input, distill the comments down internally to deliver back to the design team. And so as long as all of that goes really smoothly and efficiently, we always hit our deadlines. The way I scope out the project in terms of, how much, the design proposed fee and all that is based on the amount of time that I think this is going to take, which includes up to 2 rounds of revisions. I think there might be like micro rounds of revisions within there, like if there's small details that we want to look at, and that's totally fine. But yeah, unless we're going back to the drawing board, hey, love the 5 directions that you shared, but we don't think they're right, then, okay, well, we have to quickly try to figure out why they're not right and why they're off brief, to try to, keep up with the deadline, because you're essentially starting over. But hopefully that upfront alignment period makes it so that doesn't happen.
Great. Thank you. I'll pass it to Nate for our last questions.
Okay, good morning. I'm Nate Shattuck, resident business owner here in town, chair of the committee. Last question I have is, how do you ensure that your designs are accessible and inclusive? And can you provide an example of how you've previously incorporated these principles into your work?
There's so many things. Like, what aspects do you have in mind?
I'm mainly ADA, and then also,
Yeah.
how we, ensure that everybody's voice is heard.
Right. Two sort of different things. So ADA, in terms of talking specifically about graphic design issues, a lot of that has to do with contrast, and particularly on screen-based media, there's some clear guidelines around restrictions and colors. So yeah, good design is gonna work in black and white, and from there, as you start to add color, you can't get too soft, you can't get too subtle. So I think that all kind of fits in with just having like good clear contrast, high legibility, and good hierarchy of information, the typography. And yeah, just being mindful of what those colors are and making sure that they're compliant. That's pretty easy to do. So that will probably come up in the process too. If there's a desire to kind of see various color palettes, we'll be kind of reminding ourselves like, hey, like can't really do this contrast over here. We got to make sure there's enough, for compliance. So so that was question one. And then making sure the community's heard. Yeah, I think in the beginning, like we were saying, that's what's going to influence this entire process. That's going to help, come up with, some ideas that represent the story of the town. So hopefully they do feel included, because I think whatever gets, translated into design is being, whoever's participating, they're going to be a big part of that. And hopefully it represents them as a whole. I know that's hard if some people have big voices, and or there's only a limited select amount of people involved, but there might be a way to create a brand specific survey before the project starts, to try to get the community members to answer them. It would probably have to be fairly simple and quick, and I don't know the best delivery mechanism for something like that. Probably social media, but just to kind of get feelers out for things initially could be good. Maybe that's rolled into how we're asking people to kind of join in if they want to be a part of the workshop. I'm not sure what the process is for that. And then after sort of design, concept development starts, and we have, a presentation, potentially, one or two rounds of revisions on that, to really feel confident in what's being shown. Then I think we bring it back to the community, get their take before it's final, before we just say, hey, this is your new identity. It's sort of like we're working towards a new identity, and gather some feedback. Now, the question there is, well, what do we do with that feedback? And how does it influence the design? And we could hear things that, like, hey, you know what? It's still open. We're not done yet. And I think we're hearing some great things. What if, something like that could work within the parameters of this design without changing it too much, where it feels like it's opening the floodgates. So that's great. It's great to have people, eyes on it for sure. But as long as there's a balance, right? Like, as long as there's, we're confident in our, partnership, our collaboration, that we have good, strong decision makers, kind of leading the charge and making sure that, we're not just, reactively designing to every whim of, anybody in town.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have about 3 minutes before we open for comment. John, do you have any questions for us?
I don't right now.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is a public open meeting, so we are not going to kick you out. But in a couple of minutes, we're going to open for public comment. So you're welcome to go, unless any members have any other thoughts, questions. Okay. Well, then I'll say thank you so much for your submission, for your proposal, for your work in Massachusetts, making our small towns shine a little bit brighter. And thank you for being here with us this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Good to meet
Talk
you.
soon.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So we have about 2 minutes of time, unless you want to open it up now for public comment.
You're the chair, man. You open it up.
Yeah, I think at this point, if anyone from the public wishes to make comments, we'll open it up. It's 11:43. We've got about now 5 or 8 minutes to.
I'd like, as clerk, I would like to ask that you state your full name and your relationship to the town.
Would anyone like to have any comments? Hearing none, shall we move on?
Count to three. Going once.
3, 2, 1. Okay. So at this point, we'll move
That's
to
how the select board does it.
Really? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so next up on the agenda is the our internal discussion.
We can do some face-to-face discussion, and then I can bring up the scorecard, but I do have the scorecard for us as well.
Yeah, I think he had excellent on the point answers for just about everything we had to ask him. I think I did get a sense that he was getting a little annoyed at I think our questions are a little repetitive. It's too late to go back to that now, but I think he was getting a little upset at that, which, maybe a flag, maybe not. We'll see how everybody else reacts to things as well. But
we can always acknowledge that the questions have been answered once or twice already. So
yeah. And also, like, some of the questions are not necessarily meant for people who are like local. It's, like the question of like geography is like clearly for the people from Vancouver, but like we have to ask everybody. So
there's a way to say we're in the same time zone and I'm local, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
There's a way to respond that answers the question without defensiveness.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do sort of like the idea of the workshop principle, but then that raises the question: how do we handle site visits as a committee? And I think we need to identify that as well if we're going to have site visits.
I feel like we're behind the 8 ball in regards to being prepared for them to start. We have all of the feedback from the town employees, but he never once mentioned employees and their thoughts and their buy-in. It was all about the community, and maybe shame on us because we focus all of our questions about the community. But I really felt like, well, shoot, we should have been surveying the town people at the same time we were surveying employees or something like that. Like, I feel like we don't have much to offer him except for like really old surveys that we may have done in the past.
I disagree, Kate. I think that we have the conversations from the Creative Economy Committee, which is going to be really, really helpful. So I think that is a form of community feedback. I think the municipal staff are members of the community, so that counts. And I think, to me, it's a little bit of a flag that someone who's a designer wouldn't ask, what is the take on the people who are implementing the design? Like, I think it is a concern. I think what the staff thinks is a concern because those are going to be our ambassadors for the project. That's why we decided to survey them. I think the workshop or possibly a broader community survey could be executed, but this committee is also a representation of the community. Like, you all, like the business owner who knows what's happening,
where is this data? Where is this information? Where is this feedback? I don't have any of it.
The municipal staff feedback or the community?
Anything. I don't have. I'm sitting here going, okay, there's feedback, and we have this. I don't have any of it.
So you're on our share drive, and we looked at the survey data last time. We can.
Okay, but you talked about incorporating something from the creative.
So Maud, do you want to share?
Sure. So
what's that all about?
Sure. So we've been doing surveying this last summer and in the fall of 23. And they were around specific projects, but while we were asking specific project-based information around wayfinding, which is a branding project, cultural district, another branding project, and the transfer station murals, we also incorporated larger identity of Belchertown questions so that we were getting kind of rolling data on that front. I shared all of that with Danielle. I believe it's in the shared drive there, but this data is just among the kinds of sets that we can access I don't know that it's necessarily the end all be all. I mean, it's been on a rolling basis on our end because we want it to kind of keep being refreshed.
And I haven't done a presentation on that. Maud hasn't done a presentation on that because we have been like all cylinders firing to get a graphic designer. So once we finalize the decision, we will have the next step is aggregate everything that we want to share. And it goes through this committee. Like you also are you're the feedback. Like you are the litmus test of what the town thinks. That's why like all of you are so essential to the process. That's why we have select board members on here as well who are like bringing the voices of their constituents. So that is our next step, is to like call everything, aggregate what is going to be shared with the designer. But we've been like we're adding meetings and nonstop, you know. So we don't have it all. I mean, I have it all in drives, but we haven't as a committee sat down and mined it together and decided what's going to be shared. That'll be next up on our to do.
I just want to say, you know, given that he is in close proximity and willing to come in with fresh eyes and meet the community and pull out a couple business owners in the town and get a feel for exactly what we're looking to implement, and actually putting somebody in command of not having 90,000 voices, but relaying one message to him is a very clear skill to a graphic designer. So I feel that his statement in that was delegated appropriately, and somebody really needs to consider that moving forward with any of the graphic designers that we do choose. We're trying to create, you know, a seal. Once we deliver our message and he designs it, I didn't get a big feedback from him that he was being flexible in a redesign if we didn't like his first product. But at the same breath, if we are clear as to what it is that we're looking to implement and gathering the information in ourselves, I mean, there's a lot when you invite the public in and too many hands are in the pot. So when you're able to just decipher away and have one person just, you know, he was not wrong in that. And we might be hearing that through the remainder of the interviews.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I hear what you're saying, Nate, too, because I don't know what the vision is. I don't know what the brief is. I don't know like how we're guiding this person. Like I could come up with my own personal ideas, but we all have to have a same idea of what the correct brief is so that this person could be successful. That'll take a lot of work. I thought his experience working with Amesbury would be invaluable, and be really curious to hear what the mayor has to say, even though that person's his friend. I'm sure she'll say great things, but like the community part and the feedback part, and you know, like where did that Amesbury logo start and where did it end, and like what were the bumps along the way would be really interesting to hear. I really liked his willingness to come and like put feet on the ground and talk to people. I think that's going to be huge. And he had a really strong grasp just on like strategy and process and experience. So that was my main takeaway.
I didn't know there was another carriage town in Massachusetts.
There's a lot.
I learned that today.
I didn't get the feeling from him though that it was just one design and done. Like I didn't get that feeling that he was just going to present one, and if we didn't like it, he wouldn't be amicable for a complete redesign for the second. Or
Yeah.
you know, I wouldn't expect a complete redesign on round 3. Like at that point, if you're completely redesigning at round 3, there's other significant challenges that would be addressed.
In regards to meeting deadline, he did actually say that if we present going back to the complete drawing board, which I mean, if we're clear enough on, you know, relaying the actual message that we're looking to appear, that shouldn't happen with either graphic, no matter who we choose.
Oh, there's a webinar. Okay, awesome. And I don't know if anybody went on his website, Magnifico, but like they do explain more on Amesbury with like the architecture and how it applied to the different town groups. And I thought that was really strong work.
We are going to have to wrap this up in the essence of time, I think, pretty quick.
Yeah.
So,
well, I know Nicole has to jump. I didn't know if you wanted to share any thoughts before. Okay.
Sorry. I had nothing to share. I did feel like our questions were a little duplicitous for him. It's hard to compare until we hear the second and the third interview. It's hard for me to kind of draw any conclusions off of that. But I do think it will be important when asking questions going forward to say to them, if this feels like you're just going to be repeating yourself, just say so, that we recognize that some of these questions, are the same over and over again. But yeah, no other feedback than that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe we could even say like these are the categories of questions that we are going to ask you so that they know like save answers.
A little prelude to that. Yeah. I think that from a direction point, that'll keep things moving easier. We're not have to worry about time quite so much.
Okay. So I know I have to adjust this for the name. We're only doing one of these, but would we like to start a preliminary scorecard?
I thought we were doing it at the end. No?
We can wait until the end, or we could do a preliminary scorecard after each and then discuss as a group once all the interviews are complete.
Yeah, and then like adjust the scores once we're comparing something to
Does
another.
everyone have time to do this?
I have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
I have 5.
All right. Let's use the 5 minutes, or let's use 4.5, and then we have enough time to make the recess.
All right. So boldness and originality of their work. We have a 1 to 10.
What? Sorry, what's the question again?
Boldness and originality of their portfolio of work.
And being high, right? Yep.
I'm going to give them an 8.
Okay, me too.
I think that's safe.
Agreed.
Previous track record of refreshing municipalities or rural communities.
That's pretty high.
Yeah, it's going to give them an 8.
Oh, 8 for that one?
I'd say 9 or 10. Personally.
Yeah, I would have done 9 or 10 as
9 or
well.
10. Okay, 9. And
Okay. Experience working with clients that have similar profile to Belchertown.
10.
10.
Yeah, you made that pretty clear. Yeah.
Ability to engage with community members and incorporate feedback and vision.
10.
Everyone in agreement with that?
Yeah, like
feel
9
that
or 10. We don't really know his actual like how that went down, but it sounded good.
Yeah, I would have done a 9, probably not a 10. Like I don't.
All right, 9.
All right. Depth of insight regarding the opportunity or challenge here.
He knows a lot about the challenge, but didn't take any time to really look into our things. The best he could say was that like our identity is that we don't have an identity currently.
And he's never been here.
Right. So I think that one was pretty
5.
low.
You on 5?
I'd say 3, personally.
Well, I mean, he did have a good understanding of the challenge, like the seal and how it's working, not
That's
working, how like the logo has to work in all these different environments, including wayfinding and across the different departments. And like, I thought he had goes back to understanding similar projects, but
I think that's
Yeah,
also
those are
hard
simple.
to rate too. Like there's,
Yeah.
He'd have to get really diplomatic if he was going to try to point out what our flaws might have been during the interview. Like that kind of puts
I
him
vote
in the
for
hot
5.
seat.
All right.
Yeah, 5 is good.
And we can revise this later, but depth and thoughtfulness of approach to community engagement.
I'm going with 8.
That's subjective as well.
They're all subjective. I heard an 8.
8's good
Yeah.
for me.
All right.
7 or 8. I guess 7 or 8. Yeah.
All right. I hear you, Nate. We'll bring it down a little. Meets our objectives in the time frame. I think was it a strong response. Yep.
Yeah. 10.
Yeah, that was strong.
Clear and effective collaboration model.
Not sure we really discussed that too much, did we?
Well, he's going to do the workshop. He wants to come see us. He wants to talk to people. He wants to do like several rounds of.
So that was clear. I mean,
Is
yeah.
that what this means?
Yeah,
I think that's
Presenting to us.
I would
I
probably
think that's
put
a
that one
high
an 8.
score.
8's fine.
I think an 8.
8, right?
Value relative to deliverables.
I mean, he hit
think
the
that's
budget. Is that basically what that means?
within budget and doing the things that need to be done within budget.
Where did his proposal come in on budget, on time, or like cost wise? Because I know a few people came in under.
We've got less than a minute, so
It was 9,900. So 100 under budget.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's necessarily high, but I'd give that like a 7, 6 or 7, right?
Yeah. Okay. And then we've got to move quick because
All right. Credibility and quality of the team.
I wish we had asked a question on that because I know he has a team and it's not clear to me if he is going to be actively working on this himself the entire time or delegating or what. Like, I feel like that was a miss, but we can't really add it now.
Yep.
But the team is outlined in the proposal deck, I think.
Yeah, there's a picture of everybody with
Can we leave it blank for now?
Yeah, like we don't know like how many projects are they doing at the same time and
I mean,
and it's noon too, so I do think we have to come back to this afterwards.
Our meeting is open until 4 o'clock, but I know people have to leave, so we can stay open if folks want to answer these questions.
We do have to have a vote to put it in recess again, so I need to make sure we have enough votes to do that.
So
can we vote to put it in recess when you're done discussing and then I'll leave?
Yeah, can we just get through these last 4 and then vote?
All right. So credibility of the team, we can come back to chemistry and compatibility with our team.
I think it was like a 7, maybe.
Yeah, 7. I'm going with that.
Yeah, 7.
Passion for the project.
He seemed interested.
Yeah,
he was excited about it.
Yeah, he definitely had excitement. I'd say an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, 9.
8 or 9.
9.
I'd say 8 or 9. We're on the expectations.
Exceed the expectations.
8. Okay.
8.
I don't know. I feel like the willingness to come out and have those meetings and stuff, I would put him closer to a 9.
I agree.
Credibility is high, right? He did Amesbury, and that's like the project we're modeling this off of. So credibility is real up.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, with the understanding of time, do I have a motion to put the meeting in recess until 3 p.m.?
Yes.
I put forward a motion to recess. Is that what I have to do?
We just need a motion to put it in recess.
Yep. I second that.
Okay. All in favor, say your name and vote.
Maureen McGowan Hall. Yes to recess.
Molly Robinson, yes to recess.
Kate Nadeau, yes.
I'll just go last every time, all right?
Nate Shattuck, yes to recess.
Okay, see y'all later.
See you at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. See you then.
Bye.
Hello.
Hi, Baron. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Hello, nice meeting you all.
Hi, Andres. So welcome to the space. I have an announcement to share. Our chair is picking up a kiddo from school. So he is a bit delayed. So the meeting has not officially been called to order, but I'll set the stage for us just before we get started and let you know what's going on. So technically we're still on a recess right now, but Chris.
Molly as vice chair can start it off.
Can I?
Yes.
Look at me. Okay. I hereby call this meeting to order at 3:01 p.m. Is that how I do it?
You motion to call the meeting.
I motion to please call this meeting to order right now.
I second.
I second. Third.
So then it's all those in favor, and then you have to
All those in favor, please state your name and say that you agree.
Maureen McGarrett Hall, I agree.
Chris Martin, I agree. And then Molly, you're the last one.
Oh, and Molly Robinson, yes, I agree.
And that's quorum. So we can start.
And we have Kate here as well. So I don't know if we're above quorum, but I don't know if Kate wants to.
She's technically associate member, so she can't.
Okay.
It doesn't count towards that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Great. So, welcome. Welcome to the Branding Belchertown Committee. Baron and Andres, it's wonderful to have you here. My name is Danielle. I've been emailing with y'all, helping project manage this initiative. In the room, we have members of the town committee, as well as community members. This is a public open meeting. Kate, you are not muted and we cannot hear you if you are speaking right now. So if you are speaking, we cannot hear you. But you're correct in that you're not showing up as muted for us either. So, okay, yep, great. All right, sorry, we've got some more Barons joining us.
Oh, weird. I was trying to join from a different device, so just deny the other one. I'm here.
Okay.
I don't have a second one. Oh, there we go.
I think
I'll just leave on my other device. Yeah, give me 1 second. My bad. Sorry about that. See Zoom for everybody today.
It's okay. Okay, we'll see if Kate comes back.
Perfect. Surprised there's no gavel for the meeting adjourned. Would have been a great final touch there.
We need one of those. We don't have a gavel in the reactions, do we? Let's see.
That's the right terminology, right? It's not just wooden mallet.
I got a hammer in the reaction, so that's as close as we can get. And Nate is here. Nate is the chair of the committee, and Nate, we were able to actually call the meeting to order with Molly, and we have a quorum, so we are in session. We're glad that you're here, but I know you're transporting a kiddo, so you can join.
For my tardiness. I apologize for my tardiness here.
No, you're remarkably on time, considering that you were just emailing me that you're at school pickup. So you're doing great. That was quick. So we're in session. Anyway, Swoon, thank you so much for being here. We are conducting interviews for the graphic design position for Branding Belchertown. Everyone on the committee was really impressed with your proposal and its thoughtfulness. And we're using this time to do some interviews, and we're about 5 minutes late, so we'll go 5 minutes over. We have 45 minutes for question and answer and conversation with you both. Committee member will introduce themselves before they ask a question. We have 5 categories of questions, and sometimes the questions might get a little repetitive. We have to ask the same ones to every candidate, and sometimes the question we were anticipating wouldn't be answered, so we re-ask it in different ways. If you've already answered a question and you hear it kind of rephrased, feel free to say you think you covered it, you already answered it. We can do that work as well. There may be parts of questions that don't seem as relevant. We had to ask the same set of questions. So these are meant to be broad and comprehensive, but we want to get to the substance of what you want to share with us. So just take that in stride.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. So without further ado, we'll get our conversation started. We'll go for 45 minutes. At the end of that time, we'll have a few minutes for questions from you for the committee. Then, because this is a public open meeting being recorded, we have members of the community are able to come in and out. We are going to open for public comment. At that moment, you are welcome to leave. We don't need you in the room anymore. If you want to say it is a public open meeting, so you can, but we will conclude the interview process in 45 minutes. And then after some time for public comment, which I share in case there are members of the public here listening, they'll have a few minutes for public comment, and then we'll have our committee discussion. Okay?
Sounds perfect.
Great. Thank you for bearing with our municipal processes here, and I will turn it over to Chris.
All right. Very nice to meet you guys. My name is Chris Martin. I am the clerk of this committee, but also the chair of the communication committee in town. So we were huge proponents in making this happen, and sort of updating our seal to something that is a little more digital worthy and able to be applied to multiple formats throughout the town's needs. So I have the first set of questions for you. This is around understanding the vision, or understanding and vision. So if you've done any research on us, we're just curious right off the bat of what your thoughts on Belchertown's current visual identity.
Andy, do you want to start, or do you want me to take this one?
Well, I can actually start with a couple of things. So like the visual identity is a little bit dated for basically a lot of standards. Basically, one of the main standards that I want to highlight is responsiveness in the logo setting as well. So that means that your logo may be very restrictive to be able to be placed into sections of websites or favicons or app icons or any other updated material, right? So like the way that we approach this kind of methodology is we actually create a logo that is able, or like emblem that is able to adapt itself to various mediums in here. So that may mean multiple outcomes, right? That may mean that it's in your case an emblem that is actually readable on multiple settings, or an emblem that actually has variations. Currently in the world, like you actually have like multiple variations of a logo that is able to be used in social media, in digital settings, in print settings, large formats, and small formats. That's one of the first thoughts. I also believe it is dated from a branding perspective as well, where it tries to communicate too many things at the same time without actually like really being concise of what it's trying to communicate. It is quite illustrative, which is not necessarily a bad thing for an emblem, but it is definitely what's it called, like it's not discernible enough for someone that is looking at it right away and getting all the information that they need to get out of the icon itself.
All right, excellent. And then how do you see the role of graphic design in fostering a sense of identity and pride within a community, especially in a municipal setting like Belchertown? Are there any ideas or concepts that you might consider exploring for this project?
Yeah, I can start answering this one, Andy. I know that I read further into this in some local articles. I know there's a lot of opinions of this committee and everybody involved of, what Belchertown is and what makes it different as a town. So there's a lot to capture in terms of essence, legacy, the new direction of where things are going and really driving in terms of business and tourism. So that's where our process would really be tied down to getting to know and really going through a stakeholder interview process, as well as talking deeply with you guys on what it is that the town is, and really pulling towards all those answers so that we can have a uniformed approach and visual design that really communicates all of those key aspects of the town, while also leaning back towards where the the history of the town is, and leaning towards as well the new direction of what you guys are trying to achieve with this redesign, which is again going, making it clear what makes Belchertown different and makes it more than just a commuter community, rather show the uniqueness and interest of the town to those that are not as familiar with it. Andy, did you want to add anything to my answer there?
No, I think you were very thorough. The only thing that I would like to add is we are very proud of our work and how we actually have been able to deliver multiple different identities, like different organizations, like tourism and not-for-profits, like for-profits, and anything in between, right? And one thing that we're very proud is through our process, we're able to create brand identity that really speaks to the heart of the community of what's it called, or the town in your case, basically. And that's something that we really looking forward to delivering the outcome.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm going to kick it over to Kate. If your mic is working.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. I was hoping my camera wouldn't turn on before either, so I should have known the two weren't working. So anyhow, my name is Kate Nato. I am the communications manager here in Belchertown. And my first question for you is, and you might have to do a little screen share with this one, not to put you too much on the spot. But can you share examples of previous work that you successfully have navigated challenges of branding or rebranding for a municipality or other rural community?
Yeah, definitely. Andy, would you be able to screen share there for us?
Yes, absolutely. So to begin with, we are currently designing basically and developing a a specific branding project for not just a municipality, but for the whole region of what's it called, for the Pacific Northwest region, basically. That it's between anything. What's it called? It's between Washington State, BC, Alberta, basically all of the Pacific Northwest municipalities basically in here. And this is to drive tourism up basically from a brand perspective, but also from a website perspective. We right now do have examples for branding that we have that are community-based organizations rather than what's it called, like rural communities. If you allow me to share those and demonstrate how these actually speak directly to, well, we understand that you guys are a town, but these ones are also speaking to a very specific community that have a specific set of values and relevant communication methods that we needed to apply on this one. So the first example that I would like to showcase to you is a branding example for like a First United mission that we did, we designed for the downtown east side over here in Vancouver. And one of the goals of like this rebranding was to refresh the branding to reflect the community down on the downtown east side here in Vancouver. Now the downtown east side in here in the Vancouver region is unfortunately a portion of our town that has a lot of cracks into like the society basically, and we had to portray the community that lives in here in not the classical unfortunate way basically that majority of like what's it called, like the branding usually is portrayed, but portray them that they're a community, and we had to speak to them directly, and that is something that we are really proud about. So we had to talk about what's it called, each one of the members of the communities, from people that actually live on the downtown east side to stakeholders from the organization itself, and ensuring that we are showcasing the human side and the light of the community itself in the project. So we deliver everything from like the alternate logos that may be relevant to the very first question that you're asking here, Chris, as well. So we deliver. This was a project that actually delivered quite a bit of like what's it called, variations on the logos, from the main logo to the stack logo, the color schemes and everything here. But something that we're really proud about this, if you allow me to scroll a little bit down here, this is a very big branding guidelines, just like what's it called. So just as an FYI, was making sure that we are able to portray the photography and the community in a light that brings hope, rather than like it just portrays the marginalization of like the community itself. That's something that we went out. We actually spoke to the community. We interview them to ensure that we didn't input our biases into the community, but rather the community was speaking through us. And that is something that I'm very proud about this project as well. This is the same case for what's it called, a Rhode Island based project as well. This is a project that has to do with child educator providers. Basically, we are dealing with a Latino community from like Rhode Island. We were able to speak to the community as well, make sure that what is the main highlights that they want to talk about their services that they provide. This is a not-for-profit organization, and ensure that we're portraying every single portion of the branding with both dignity, but also with the truthfulness of like each one of the different members of the community that we're talking about. So that is something that we want to do for your project, making sure that we have some relevant interviews with the community members, with the town, with the town folk as well, that we can portray the stories that we find in there, and we're able to implement all of this in each one of the applications that we will be creating for your branding guidelines.
Fabulous. So my next follow-up question, it's similar to what you just answered, but there's a little bit more in there, and it kind of gets more into the meat of it, if you will. So what specific strategies did you use to ensure your designs were both engaging and representative of the community's identity?
Brian, do you want to start, or do you want me to kick it off right away?
You kick off and I'll jump in.
Sounds good. This is something that we are very proud, but I can also speak about it for myself, from my perspective as the art director in here. And that is something that we have a very rigorous design process, right? But also flexible enough that is actually able to implement ideas from the community as well in our design. This starts everything from our great creative director here, Bern. He's going to be creating the creative brief with you all, basically making sure that we get the very tangible outcomes that we need to prepare for in the design process. And we set up each one of the scientific methodical processes that we need to like implement in your work. That means that all of our work is not based on just background research, like we just go in Wikipedia, we learn about like Belchertown, and that's great. No, we actually gonna implement some metrics in your work that, for example, include the interview processes. We can actually do like a stakeholder survey, but we can also do a community survey. That because there's sometimes a misalignment on what the stakeholders want versus what is the community voice in there, right? So that is something that is very important. The interview is a little bit different because it will give us a little more insight on culture that really we would like to understand a little bit more. From these metrics, and there's more, right? I can actually go into like all the other tools, but from these metrics, we can actually start capturing essence from the town, like thought processes of what people currently perceive Belchertown is. What do they want to see? What is the vision for the future from the community voices? And something that I can tell you really that we're very proud about is that we like to not input our biases into our work. We like to ensure that we are able to be that conduit of the community, since we are working with a lot of like very diverse communities, and one of our biggest sectors is the not-for-profit sector. We want to ensure that we're not speaking through the lens of like Bern or myself and like the rest of our team, but rather we are the conduit of the voices of the communities that are in each location or each organization, as these are very diverse in race, gender, equity, and everything that has to do with that. So that's something that is very important for us in the outcomes of our work.
And just to add to that, we wouldn't even begin designing until the process that Andy just highlighted is complete. And that's where we come back and, as Andy mentioned, share that with you of what our findings are, what came out of that initial process, so that we can talk about what those findings are and really align for the vision of what we're going to create next in design. There should be nothing that you guys receive from us that doesn't have a rationale. We should be able to explain every detail of the design so that when you go out and unveil this, it's very clear of what it is that it's representing and the rationale behind the design itself. Even down to, as you may have saw in one of the branding guidelines that Andy presented, naming the color choices, really being specific with those fine details to make sure that all of them come back to the unified vision for the project.
Fabulous. That wraps up my portion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
All right, it's over to me. Thanks both for being here. I'm Molly Robinson. I sit on this committee as a volunteer, as well as a couple other creative and cultural committees in town. And in my day job, I run brand strategy for a consulting firm. So I'm very happy to be having this conversation. My questions, I feel like you may have answered them before, so you're free to just like indicate that you've already done that or expound on them. So the first is, what methods have you employed in past projects to incorporate community feedback into your design process?
I can actually speak to that.
You're jumping at that. Go ahead.
Yes. In addition to like what's it called, some of the interview processes and like and collecting data and all of those items in there. Couple of like other methodologies that we have actually also employed into our toolkit is actually being able to like really learning as much as possible about the section that we're researching. It's not just about like learning about the community, but getting to know what are the main landmarks, what are the cultural heritage items that we need to take into consideration, little insights, and that's something that is really overlooked into like in a lot of processes. It's not just the hard data, but the little cultural like overlaps that happen that people sometimes just tell you, and that's why interviews are such an important thing for us on this project, is because like while like the metrics of the survey may actually skip over and just give us just more tangible data, in interviews we may get a little bit more histories that are more anecdotes that are overlapping culture in these items. And this was something that was very important in First United, in the project that I showcased at the very beginning, and that is because we were able to capture that the community, and one important factor in the community that we found in there was the pets. And that's why you saw one of like the people that were in there were holding their pets, and how they have become really important companions to unhoused people sometimes as well in there. And that's why they have become like the yeah, like their most important companion. And that's why we wanted to showcase this in some of the branding pieces that we're able to do. And nobody will pick this up if you don't get to speak to them, because yeah, you get to like see unhoused people with like their dogs, but you don't get to see the story that they have behind that. And that is one of the methods that we would like to implement on your specific projects, in addition to the other ones that we already mentioned as well.
It's beautiful. Thank you. So for this project, where in the timeline do you see opportunities for the community participation and feedback on the project?
At the very beginning of the project, ideally. Since like we're talking about like a lot of like collecting data, we ideally would like to start interviews at the very beginning of the project, so we collect as much of like these anecdotes or like a lot of like this historical data that we can implement to the branding. And we are actually very open for this particular project to have a stress test on the initial like what's it called, logo mark as well, that we may be able to implement with some barriers, because like obviously there's like a wide variety of opinions like that. Some may really love it, some may really not love it. We're gonna obviously try to make sure that everything is good, but that in the end we implement some metrics of like, does this speak to the heart of the town, does this portray realistically what the town is? So there's gonna be some controls that we implement whenever we're opening it up to the community, but we're fully open to ensure that like the community is fully involved all the way through the process.
And having this openness in the beginning will also prevent us from, one of the big challenges that can come with any redesign project or rebrand is we want to try and avoid that tough word of a redesign later in the project. That's why that initial step to really make sure that we're clear on, as Andy said, there's bias that comes with design and visual. But if we are really clear on getting the right starting points and capturing all those key words in what we're creating, then we can always go back to that and make sure, are those representative in the design here? And yeah, we all have our biases, favorite colors, things like that. But if we are really good at the concrete items and we capture those, then the design will be representative of the town. And that's what we'll ensure in the process.
A couple more follow-ups on that thread. How will you balance your professional design principles and vision with the community preferences and inputs that you get? And how will you handle the feedback that could initially contradict your concepts?
do you want me to jump in, Bern? Sorry, I just
Yeah,
have to check with the
maybe.
creative director over here. So
No, I think you had the one extra cup of coffee, David. That's great. Maybe
a
hit
little
on the
bit.
accessibility side as well, Andy, on that one. I think would be great.
Well, the first couple of things is like, so like the balance for like the professional design principles question, because there's multiple facets in here, right? So we are human centered. Like that's our being our philosophy from like the very beginning in like in our journey as designers, basically. So that means that our process, while it follows design principles and everything that needs to make a logo great, we are human centered first. We're designing for humans first, and that is our most important value as a company. So what do we mean by that? That means that the principles of design actually serve the purpose of communicating something that speaks to the community, rather than it's such a rigorous process that doesn't matter. We have to have what's it called, a very specific color balance going on here. So no, we want to make sure that everything is speaking to the community through our design principles and through our design expertise. That's our balance. So like that we normally implement on every project. And in the second one in here, we understand that the first delivery is usually the hardest delivery in every project, because it's usually when all the alignments and all the big surprise actually happens. This is why in our design process, you just don't get one single logo. You will get actually 3 directions, very different directions, on what we're gonna be pursuing. In our process, we actually deliver first in black and white. Why? Because we want to make sure that the first thing that you guys see is basically a logo that works even in black and white, and we detach color from the process completely, because color starts adding another layer of thinking at this particular point, that while we're worried about does this typography work, people are thinking, well, I don't like that blue, right? So like it's a little bit like a different process, right? So we want to ensure that we get as much tangible elements as possible on the branding, because we understand that branding is also a little bit like an abstract process as well. But we want to ensure that we have a very explicit creative rationale that we're delivering to you, that it's based on tangibles and it's based on vision, rather that is based on hey, like we wanted to implement this bird in here because it's cool, right? So you won't get that from us. What you will get from us is this what's it called, this specific direction. The emblem is driven towards the need to have a very more modernized emblem. So like we will try to ensure that all of those are very tangible elements that we have in there, but also you can disagree with the initial vision, and we will try to correct as much as possible with our process. And we will also ask you questions. Is there a direction that you like the most? Which one is the one that you like the least? Are there elements that you like from some of these ones that you like to be able to carry them over into the new vision? That way, we are building on an iterative process rather than scrapping everything down and beginning from zero, right? That way, we're always building on our process. That's something that we're very proud of in our revision system.
Thank you. That's the end of mine. Over to Danielle.
Thank you guys so much. It sounds like collaboration and communication is a big part of your process, and we'd love to hear a little bit more about how you handle communication with your clients, and how do you handle time and geographic differences when working with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start that, Andy. Maybe you want to jump in on feedback and milestone stuff like that. But yeah, so our typical process is we would definitely have a kickoff meeting if we were to move forward on this project. And right after the kickoff meeting, we would give you guys a timeline that has the main milestone beats of the project. We understand there's a lot of people involved from the community that are volunteering their time. So we really want to give you from the beginning of the project a clear broadcast of when to expect, we'll need input, when we'll expect to have meetings and important milestones, so that we can set those clearly in advance. And as an agency, we consider that clear communication and transparency on where the project is at all times is a high priority, and has led us to successful projects in the past. So typically we're using Asana or Google Sheets to track the project, and we can share insight on where the project is at in a live tracking sheet, so you know where we are at all times. as well as we can also provide additional lanes of communication. I'm probably a little bit too close to my phone at all times, so if there was any kind of emergency or anything like that, you can always pick up the phone and give me a phone call. And we also work with a lot of our clients are on the East Coast as well as outside of Canada. And we work with a few clients in Europe and Asia as well, so we're quite versed at working with clients outside of our time zone. It's not a huge difference in this case, so we don't have any concern and would really fall into our regular process for client communications. Andy, do you want to add anything on top of that?
Nope. Alignment will be pretty straightforward basically for this project. So we don't have any concerns about working with the East Coast, as Brian said, basically in this particular project. For revisions and anything like that, in addition to like the meeting itself, where we're gonna be showcasing feedback, we mainly take it through like email processes. Why? And that is because like we want to make sure that everything is written perfectly and we get the time to collect all of the thoughts basically into a single stream of communications rather than obviously everyone can voice their opinions through like the meeting and we'll be collecting that as much as possible. But to make sure that we have a clear pathway where we definitely communicate majority of like the feedback through emails. That being said, initial presentations such as like the very first version of the logo, we would like to present that to be able to explain our creative rationale, so you guys don't just get like the written answer in there basically, but you also get the emotional attachment, also the creative rationale that we were able to create for the project as well. And from there, basically, like majority of the communications we handle through emails. We also have other channels that we can use, and that's, for example, Slack. For Slack, we normally use like it's just very for like really quick communication tickets. So, for example, hey, like someone is gonna be sick tomorrow. Like, is there any way that we can move this for like like those is very small communications where like email is better for like paper trail.
Thank you. How I know you shared that you're planning to provide another timeline with milestones after the kickoff meeting, but can you share a little bit more about how you manage deadlines and maybe describe a time where you had to adapt the design to meet unexpected changes or feedback, and how does that impact your ability to work according to deadline?
Andy, do you want to take this one?
Yes, I can do. So the deadlines are gonna be set out right away in like the Excel sheet, so you guys will know the date or range of dates where like deliverables will be sent to you. If there's a meeting, it will be a single date. If there's like a deliverable, it may be a range of dates to be able to manage like what's it called, the sending back and forth between those ones. There has been definitely like portions of like in our long career in here to that we have had either a deadline being pushed or a deadline affecting a portion of the work or a feedback affecting the portion of the work. If the feedback is reasonable enough where like there was just something that needs to be like implemented, that may not affect the deadline at all. But if it's something like, hey guys, like I think we need to go backwards on something in this process, that is something that affects the deadline, right? If something like that happens, we voice it right away. We send a notification of like, hey guys, this kind of feedback may affect the deadline, so you guys can make that decision and weigh your options in terms of like whether that's that's worth risking the deadline for, or if we should just push it forward. That being said, on our end, we're gonna be do everything that we can to ensure that your turnarounds for feedback are in a 3 to 5 days basis. Basically, that's usually a normal branding turnaround time, depending on feedback turnaround. And what we also do is for every deliverable, because there's some deliverables that are not accounted for in the timeline, right? Like for example, there may be an extra revision on the logo that just telling you like it's gonna be on the 14th of February is a little bit not quite transparent from our side to tell you that basically because that's gonna be based on whenever that feedback is gonna be ready, right? There's gonna be times that we're gonna have to like let you know on the feedback we need it by the latest. Let's say like we deliver something to you today, we are gonna tell you on the feedback if we need this the feedback by latest the next week, end of week. Basically, it will include dates and the stamps in there to like you guys know what is the actual deliverable date for like the feedback or the cutoff, so we can actually carry over with the momentum of the project. If that feedback is delayed, we may send a notification whether that actually affects the deadline or if there's a modified workaround about that revision. It is a very collaboration, what's it called, methodology that we follow with you guys, basically. So as long as we're collaborating, there should not be a danger on the timeline. If there's a danger to the timeline, we'll rather let you know about it right away so we can adapt it. If the error is on us, we do everything on our hand to make sure that we recover as much as possible from like the deadline, and transparency is key. If there is a mistake from our side, we'll be as transparent as possible to let you know where we carry things forward.
One last thing to add to that, we would say that the timeline that we've currently, that was in the proposal is very ample for a project of this scope. So at this time, if we were to kick off as kind of planned, we really don't have, like, timeline is not a major concern for us. As Andy said, it would just be really making sure that that feedback turnaround time is realistic for you guys and making sure that that is in alignment, and then maybe even baking in a couple weeks. So sorry about that. Can everyone hear me? Sorry about that. Yeah, so we just bake in that 2 weeks of wiggle room just to make sure that we have a little bit of room to work with in case there were any delays.
If a delay were to be hit, we normally give you the 2-week notice, basically. Don't worry, that's not like an actual 2-week notice. It's more like, hey guys, this is gonna be delayed for 2 weeks. That's a normal turnaround of deliverables, basically. So like if there's a big deliverable, normally they are like either on a 1 week to 2-week notice. So we'll let you know exactly by how long it will get delayed, so we can all be on the same timeline and we can all be on the same time frame. And again, communication is key.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to pass it to Nate.
Nate, you're on mute.
Hi, that's better. Sorry.
We can hear you, Nate. No worries.
I'm Nate Shattuck, the chair of the branding committee and also a business owner here in Belchertown. I have a question for you. How do you ensure that your designs are accessible and inclusive? Can you provide an example of how you've previously incorporated these principles into your work?
Absolutely. So we are partner up with, like, so there's two components for an agency. We're a branding agency and we're a web agency. In the branding side of things, we make sure that we adhere to the accessibility concerns that are depending on the region. For example, here in Canada or Ontario, you have AOTA. I know we in the States we have ADA, and in Europe we have a couple of other ones in here as well. But also we are partnered up with UserWay for like our web accessibility process as well. So we if the project demands accessibility, we are working from the very basis of that accessibility. What does that mean? For something like branding, we ensure that the typography is legible. Depending on the typography, that means like that means that we need to choose a typography that is like perhaps like a very clean sans serif or anything like that. Or we work with color contrast as well. That's something that is very important for accessibility due to like colors, right? So that we want to make sure that each one of your assets have a correct color contrast ratio, which we check for in every single step of the way. Also, it's the reason why we design logos on black and white, due to making sure that you have the right contrast, even whenever you go to grayscale. And that is something that is really important. Whenever we're creating PDFs, we'll give you basically guidelines on how to create them always accessible. But there's a couple of examples that I can showcase in here of like work that we have done with accessibility in mind. So let me just go ahead and showcase some of them in here. Give me 1 second. So one of our biggest examples that we have for accessibility will be the United Way Centraid Canada. This whole project was delivered with accessibility in mind. Mind you, we did, just disclosure, we did not create the logo for United Way. I want to be transparent about that, but we did deliver the whole website with WCAG standards in here, basically. So all of the website has basically key tab navigation and everything, with the accessibility in mind first and foremost. This is for like these hearing disabilities, for screen reader devices. There's for disability devices. That's why you also find that the buttons are like learn more about rather than just read more, read more, read more, read more. So we are quite versed in accessibility and delivering projects that are accessible. Not only that, but PDFs in here as well were made to be accessible through our tools as well. So in the print and digital medium that is less on the website of things, we also created the accessibility with. We also created them and modified them with accessibility standards as well in here. So I can assure you that we're quite versed in accessibility, and we have adhered in the past to multiple items. Now, you're not gonna be WCAG standard in this particular sense because like we're not designing your full website, but we're gonna be designing your work based on with the regulations that they need to be created with. Obviously, there are some parameters whenever we're dealing with accessibility that will start directing the work a little bit, if that makes sense. But we can cross that bridge once we actually start assessing each one of the individual items, because we can deliver your accessible brand and we can tell you what can be accessible from there on. But there's some items that we need to consider whenever we're dealing with expanded branding after we're gone, or if we are still on board with you guys, right?
Thank you. Okay.
Great. So that's all of our Chris, did you have something to?
Nope.
Okay. That's all of our questions for you. So if you're welcome to, if you have anything to add that we didn't cover, you can share with us, or if you have any questions for us, we're happy to answer any questions you all have.
Andy, do you wanna lead?
I think you can do the one that you like.
Yep, sounds good. Well, we were also considering in the project as well that there may be consideration for coming for a visit. So if we were to come for a weekend to visit the town, what would you guys recommend us to do on a Sunday? I know there might be many opinions on that.
That's a great get to know you question, that's for sure.
Is there any recommendation?
Southern Reservoir.
Yeah, just get into nature.
Yeah.
We can get behind that 100%.
It definitely depends on the time of year. Right now, maybe they're like going on cross-country ski or enjoying one of our many fine restaurants in town, get some pizza. In the summer, there's like farmers market. I feel like it really depends on the season.
Gotcha.
There's a sugar shack in town.
A what shack? Sorry, Chris?
A sugar shack.
Okay, right on.
Yep.
I was going to ask for best recommendations in that department as well. Okay, we're building an itinerary here, and this is a part of that initial research that we'd be asking about. So thank you so much for those suggestions. We would definitely be interested.
Spring, summertime, we'll have the farmers markets out on the common. A lot more activity there. So those would be great to come and visit. I know, yeah, it really comes down to like the time of year.
Yeah, because we have tons of nature trails as well too. And that also depends on, if you like nature in the winter, if you prefer nature when it's warm and dry, right? So we've got lots of nature trails. We have a town beach and stuff like that too.
Beautiful.
Outdoor sporting activity, things like that. So
yeah.
Love it. And here's another, open-ended question. What excites you guys most about this project? I mean, this has probably been a long time coming in conversation. What gets you guys most excited about the change that can come with this project?
For me, as the communications manager for the town, I am most excited about having a cohesive design that we can apply to all of our different entities, but also getting messaging in place that the town can stand behind and something that we can use to grow the town, to show that we're not a little farm town or a little, nature trail town or something like that. Like we're a legitimate place for people to come and visit and grow your business at.
Beautiful. Yeah, which actually, if I can just add on something that we were going to mention about First United that we really pride ourselves on, I did want to interject on you, Andy, is that our branding toolkit that we created for First United actually went into a full transit, billboard, video campaign. So all of those assets were used across pretty much every medium that you could imagine to get the word out there. And they actually raised money to build a new facility for the downtown east side with the campaign that we helped create, and with that brand toolkit. So I can definitely say that we'd be giving you something that would help you out at Kate and anyone else supporting you on the comms team for that future, setting you up for success with tools that you could use going forward. So that's definitely something that we could provide. Is there any other questions or answers for what excites you guys about this project?
I mean, from my committee's perspective, we, spent we had a couple members go and try to digitize the current seal. It took them about 2 weeks to work through it, only to find out that it wasn't even the correct version of it. That we have something around 6 versions that exist out there. Yeah. That are just around. So definitely one of my pushes for this was just to bring it all together, get it digitized, get it ready to use everywhere, and make it just one solid message. Which you guys touched on was a big problem with many of the towns and stuff.
Yeah, that's that's not an uncommon problem. That's why a brand toolkit is very important in our side of things at the very end, basically, where you have centralization of all the logos that you need to use, basically, and each one of the assets that will have to deliver for you. That way you have always centralized that. And after the fact, we kind of preserve that for a little bit of a long time. So we preserve all of our files up to 10 years, basically. So if you guys were to ever lose them, you guys can just reach out back to us and we can resend every brand toolkit elements to you guys. This is not an uncommon problem. Unfortunately, it happens to a lot of brands that have gone through a lot of hands and they have tried to build on top of it and adapt it as much as possible. This is a very common problem, but we can doing everything holistically is the best approach for this, for sure.
I would like to just add, I am a lifetime resident of Belchertown, born and raised. Work at the community newspaper for over 24 years. So I'm very aware of the businesses, very aware of the history. The town is growing. I mean, we're the 6th largest area-wise in the entire state. So I know that with the growth is capable. I know there's a lot of people that want a lot of growth, but I also know that there's a lot who want to keep that history. Yep. So I just really want to make sure that that's able to be captured. I'm interested in looking at the 3 designs. Would be amazing to be able to choose from. So, I mean, everything sounds great.
Amazing. Yeah. And we see that there's other really cool initiatives happening in the town. I saw that there was a mural project going on. It sounds like there's some really cool things happening that can really capture that legacy and tell that story in a really beautiful visual way. I was checking at the Clap Library. I saw the amazing design in the stained glass. It was definitely really inspiring. I'm a little bit of a painter myself, so that was something really cool and inspiring to see. So that, we'll definitely be looking to pull all of those amazing elements. Amazing.
I'm very curious about the Sugar Shack, actually.
Yeah, Andy's the resident foodie.
Yeah.
Well, unless you guys have any other questions for us, I know you guys had scripted questions here that you prepared in advance. If there's anything else that you guys want to ask us, I know you said, Danielle, that we'd have a few more minutes here, just 3 more minutes, I guess. If you guys have any other questions that you wanted to ask, we'd be more than happy, because I can tell you for Andy and I and the team side that we'd be really passionate about this project, and I know that we could deliver definitely really great project, not only for you guys on when we were to launch this with you and help you roll it out, but something that's going to set you up for success in the future with all these, initiatives and where the town's going in the direction that it's taking, while still also, like you said, going back to that tradition and keeping those great aspects of the town in the identity.
Thank you both so much. Committee members, any final thoughts, questions before we let the Swoon team go?
Good here.
Thank you so much.
Aaron, Andres, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to read your proposal and hear you bring it to life for us this afternoon. We'll let you get back to your days and then we'll open for public comment.
Amazing. How long is that section going to be if we were able to stick around for a few minutes for public comment?
We have up to 5 minutes. It's up to our chair to decide open, and then we go into committee deliberation.
Okay, sounds good. Do you want to kick us out, or do you want one of us to stay? It's up to you guys.
It's an open meeting, so it's actually up to you guys.
Okay, all right. I'll stick around for a few minutes if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And feel free to ask any questions that come up. Sometimes that happens right after you log off the meeting. Like, no, I was going to ask that one thing. So please feel free to ask us anything that comes up after the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So at this time at 3:49 p.m., we'll open it up for anyone that has any public comment. Give a minute or two and see if anybody wants to say anything. Hearing none, we'll count down 3 to 1 and move on from there. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now we'll go into our group deliberations, and
That's good.
Andy and Aaron, I think we're all set at this time.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
I appreciate
Thank
your
you,
time.
guys. Take care.
It was a pleasure to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so now this is we've got a few minutes for discussion. We'll open it up for that.
I like these guys. Yeah.
Strong intangibles. Also.
They did their research and their answers were concise and they had a good answer for everything.
I thought they were very personable too. They were easy to talk to, and I didn't feel like I was ever wasting their time in asking a question.
Yeah, I felt like their answers were so strong and on point. Like they were just well prepared, passionate about this. Like that was a really strong interview.
Yeah.
I thought they were amazing. And I think they offer a lot in an option when you're coming to 3 designs to be presented right off the bat, because again, we're dealing with communities, we're dealing with opinions. So you're really being able to have that option and everybody to pull an element off of each of them, and actually being presented with a black and white design, because a lot of times a black and white design will be the only option. So to be able to use that as well and build from that and add in the color after that, it's just such a good option. I just want to be able to say that.
I have a quick question. For any of these candidates, is at the end of the design phase, is that, if we agree on something, do we own it, or do we have to consult them every time we need it, or is there like a license involved? I guess
we're purchasing the artwork, so I would believe that it's the town brand.
Yeah, we would own it.
It may seem like a dumb question, but so many things have strings attached.
No, I do have a question about their proposal. Daniel, did you ever check with them if they quoted USD or Canadian dollar? Like it's a great price US dollar, but it's even cheaper Canadian dollar. So I was just curious if that was ever clarified.
I did not, but we listed it as US dollars. So I'm happy to ask the clarifying question. I like how you're thinking, Kate, especially, and given the rate, it's also really impressive that they're planning a trip, right? Like they want to come and visit the town and have asked us all, like, what to do.
Oh, I couldn't tell if that was hypothetical or if they really truly were going to come here.
No, they wanted to.
Yeah, it sounded like in the beginning of the conversation that was part of their initial plan, was to come there.
Oh, I missed that. Okay. Wow, that's impressive.
You know what I appreciated? That they did their homework on us before they came to the call. Comments on our murals. I mean, you have to dig a little bit to find out we're doing murals, and the library. He knew what Quabbin was right away. That is not something that we heard from Magnifico.
Yeah. And they had questions prepared. Like, yeah, they were buttoned up. The only things that I had just like small flags was, not having direct experience doing this for a municipality. Like I think some of the examples were nonprofits or like town adjacent, but not, this exact experience, which I think is probably, it's fine. And then I was looking on their website. I think they're very much like a web digital first company. Like they're not that felt like their bread and butter. And like most of their employees are more like UX and web. So I think like Baron and Andy are the designers and Andy would be doing the work. So I just wanted to like make sure we're all clear on their core capabilities as an agency being
I
maybe,
did pick up on that as well.
yeah, not like a huge issue, just something to be aware of.
See that as a
Okay.
opportunity. I think it speaks to like their passion for the project. Like this, to do a project with a municipality is huge for a designer, right? Because it opens up so many doors, as we saw with Magnifico, right? Like it opened the door for them to be in there, and they did do a good proposal as well. But one of their leading qualifications. So it's hard to get that first municipal gig, and one of the intangibles on Molly's questionnaire is like ability to go above and beyond, and I really got that impression from Swoon that they would go above and beyond. They're not going to be like quibbling over every like extra hour of, deliverable, and we will respect their time, right? I don't mean to imply that we're gonna expect them to go way over time in what they're doing, but I really got the impression that they're going to give their all. They're like grateful for the opportunity to be in conversation. They're excited. Yeah, they did a lot of digging to pull out the mural project. They clearly listened to and read articles about the project and acknowledged with excitement and like aware of the fact that there could be differences, but didn't find that off-putting, like didn't just by comparison to some of the other conversations we've had so far, are aware that there are town differences, but see that as an opportunity and not something to be squashed or shut down and find ways around, right? Just like they're ready to go head first in. So I really appreciated that about them.
I loved that their process involved interviews in addition to surveys, and that they said they would come in person. And also that to this idea of there being divisions within the community potentially in response to this as well, that they would offer a stress test kind of component. It was just like, oh, you get it.
Yeah.
What does that mean, Maud? What is a stress test?
I am imagining, I mean, I think it can take different shapes, but it's just kind of like, what is this gut kind of sense of the realm of what is acceptable? Like I'm imagining something like crazy contemporary where there's like sideways letters is like gonna be straight out the door in a millisecond, right? So it's kind of like sifting out the things that don't kind of like work for people.
And I think they established doing that with the initial logo as well, way to benchmark to see what are people feeling about this now. And then we can also have a metric. They were very big on metrics so that we can compare at the end of the process, which we have some already with our survey, but as a way to like measure improvement.
Yeah, I think they have a ton to offer outside of just what we initially asked for. And it feels like that extra is just part of who they are and what they deliver on. Like it's part of they're standing behind what they do.
And I will say they were a pleasure via email as well. That is not the case for all of our finalists. They were a delight. So
Fabulous.
So there are benefits to working with Canadians.
Yeah.
Well,
And they
should we
came under
just-
budget and told us this is ample time to get this kind of project done, which was like great to hear because we were like, we feel like we're way behind already. And they're like, no, we're good. We got this.
Yeah. The timeline in the proposal, it looked like it was outlined to be about 3 months, but then it said total project 5 to 6 months. So I didn't know if they were just like building in some extra.
Yeah, I think those were the 2 weeks that they had mentioned that they build in.
Okay, because 5 to 6 months is pretty different from 3 months.
Yeah, I guess that's way more than 2 weeks.
Okay, so we've got a few more minutes, I think, a couple more minutes anyway. Should we do that rating?
sure. I'll share my screen. You'll see this. We had Boldness and originality of portfolio of work.
So I just number wise here, like I would tend to give them like a 9 or something, simply because they were able to present us during the meeting with something different than they didn't already show us in their quote. And I did like that fact.
I'll go with a 9.
Yep.
Yeah, I think some of the designs look a little not necessarily like repetitive to them, but like look kind of common. But they were one of the only groups that like really featured people, right? And they even showed us that again in some of the other artwork they had, and like really wanted to like focus on the community. And I think that was something that was a little bit more bold about their work as well.
Okay. Hearing something that sounds consensus-y. Previous track record with refreshing municipalities or rural communities. So their United Way project, I think they kind of showed it as a way that they refreshed a community. It wasn't a municipal contract, but that was their backdrop.
They had also talked about their work for the Pacific Northwest, which is a pretty rural region.
I feel like it has to be kind of low though, just because I hadn't done the direct work. Like United Way isn't really a rural community. I don't know. I would go like 4, like somewhere down there.
Same.
4 range as well.
I'd say 4 or 5. 4 is fine.
Experience working with clients who have a similar profile to Belchertown.
Like that's low again.
Yeah, I think it's the same.
I think that the Pacific Northwest project that they did, we're working on now, counts as similar. And I wouldn't
like hearing that
we
they
don't
worked with
see
a
any
company
of
in Rhode
that
Island.
material.
Sorry, Kate, you cut out.
I said I did like hearing that they had worked with a company in Rhode Island with the childcare place there. I think just kind of having a knowledge of New England is helpful.
All right, thoughts?
See, maybe like a 6. Just to throw one out there. Like it's not really high, but it's not low either.
I'm okay with a 6.
I'm good with a 6.
Okay. And we can come back. We can change these. Like this is just for our purposes. This doesn't like decide, that they're getting it or not, but this is just for us to keep track.
I really thought they were great. But now that you're asking the questions, I mean, some of the stuff wasn't there. But honestly, they did have a very strong interview.
Yeah.
They didn't engage with community members and incorporate town feedback.
That's a 10.
I put a 10.
10.
Depth of insight regarding the opportunity or challenge here.
10.
10.
10.
Okay. Depth of thoughtfulness and approach to community engagement.
10.
10.
10.
Their objectives in a time frame.
They said ample time, so.
And it was recorded. We have that on recording.
I'm gonna go for an 8.
Maureen said 8.
Can we compromise on a 9?
I can.
9 sound good?
Yep.
Clear and effective collaboration model.
10.
Yep. 10.
10.
Value.
Seems like a 10.
That's a 10.
Yep.
Okay. Credibility and quality of the team.
They were great guys. I'd give them a 10.
They were amazing. 10.
Yeah.
Nate, are you in agreement, or I can't tell if you're thinking or agreeing?
I'm thinking.
You can slow it down a little too.
Yeah, like chemistry and compatibility is definitely like a 10 because we thought they were just like great. I don't know if
They
credibility.
had questions for us, so I mean,
They do have great accessibility as well. He's attached by his
Yeah.
phone. If they have a problem, they're going to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely hit credibility on the accessibility point. Like they
Mhm.
mentioned like 4 different accessibility procedures from like around the globe. Like it really
that was
That's
in depth.
also, that's standard, right? Like that's as it should be. And speaking to the have a full UX component of their company, user experience is part of their bread and butter, as Maureen pointed out. Like that should really inform what they're doing in terms of accessible design principles. And because they're doing web stuff, they have to know this stuff because it's the law, right?
Can I ask
They
a
were really great.
I'm just thinking about residents across, the town and how they're going to feel when they hear who we've chosen. Do we anticipate issues with people saying, well, why did they choose a firm outside of the United States? Or why did they choose a firm outside of Massachusetts even? Like I do worry a little bit about that and I don't know how you guys feel about that.
It's definitely something to take into consideration, but when you're dealing with business owners, when you're dealing with community history, when you're dealing with people who are aware of branding, people who are aware of graphics, their ability to perform, the ability to meet deadlines. I mean, this meeting is open to the public, so they as well are making their own decisions, and that's actually the best thing. I'm glad it's open to the public.
And also, when you consider the fact that everyone is so on point with budget and how money's being spent, I'd like to think that we'd get more credit for going with someone outside of the region because we are getting a much better value for their money.
Oh, I'm really horrible.
So I think it's going to be on this committee to Nicole provide a good rationale for why we made the hiring decision. And I think we have the recorded interviews. We have really detailed notes. We're having thoughtful conversation. And I think I noticed a clear difference between the 2 candidates today, right? We'll see if it becomes clearer over the course of the week. Like, who knows? Maybe next week, someone a little bit more local might blow us out of the water again. I would ask the question in response to that: would you rather hire someone local that's going to come up with a polarizing design and a process that's going to alienate people from participating, or would we rather bring in someone who's outside the community and is a community with a bit more respect and like cultivating something good? Ideally, we get both, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think the answer to that is the latter. But I think we also need to be prepared as a committee for feedback from the town, regardless of them coming to these public meetings, because that is always the way that it goes, is that people don't participate in the public meetings, but they absolutely have their thoughts once the ball gets rolling on things. And so just something to think about and be prepared for.
And I think we're going to have to be able to justify any decision that we make, whether or not it's this company or the company from Amesbury, because all of these meetings are being recorded, and at any time someone can go back and listen to them and be like, you were super excited about Swoon in Canada. What made you change your mind and decide to go with the people out of Massachusetts? And we have to be able to confidently answer that and not be ashamed of what our response is.
Yep. And I think there's also an opportunity. I got the sense with Swoon, I don't know that we're going to hire them, right? Like we're only halfway through the process, but I got the impression that if we were to work with them, they would be thought partners in how to share who they are and why they're part of the project. And I think that in terms of like, it'll be public who we decide to the final meeting where we deliberate. Like that'll be public information. It'll be in the meeting notes. People can find it, but we get to decide when and how to announce who we're. So I might recommend, like if we were to move forward with Swoon, for example, I would recommend that we announce them as the team at the first set of at their first visit or at their interviews or when we're like whatever the community engagement launch process is, and have them as part of that process and bring them in as partners and collaborators and say, we're a little worried that the community might see you as an outsider here. How are you going to help us handle that? Like, I got the impression that they would be good partners in that. And I think anyone that we want to work with, we didn't get any applications specifically from Belchertown, right? So anyone we work with is going to have to answer that question and be thought partners with us. And I just thought that they would be open to and respectful about how they would go about doing that. And hopefully anyone we hire would do that, but we can share the work with them. But very, very fair point to raise.
I also feel like we have a pretty good vetting process here, at least, to back it up.
And it was an open volunteer option.
I think this is still a very, very valid point from Nicole. I think this entire project has been under some pressure from the very beginning. And I think we need to keep that in mind in every step of the way. So I think it's thank you for the reminder of that, because
I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I mean, I'm with you guys on everything you've just said. I just want us to be prepared for what we're going to hear from the public. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that's entirely valid.
So should we have some sort of at least social media responses or anything to that effect? Or as far as how.
So all of the proposals from the 4 finalists are on the Branding Belchertown part of the website. And we have shared who we're meeting with and their proposals on the town Facebook page too. So that information is out there. Whether or not people are paying attention to it or whether or not Facebook is serving it up in their algorithms, that's entirely out of our control. But we have gone ahead and put that information forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Kate.
Of course.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure we're towards the end of our time, but we've got a couple things to finish up on that ranking sheet.
Passion for the project.
I feel like they're into it.
Yeah. Very passionate. Ready to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, I'm going with a 10.
That land.
Agreed.
Okay. Exceeding expectations, goes the extra mile in their proposal or presentation.
I'm going with a 10.
They did well.
Yeah, I mean, this could be one that changes with the next group that comes in even further, but like like we said, with the questions they came in, with the research they did, so far they're exceeding my expectations for sure. Especially for a company from Vancouver, completely out of the area. So I'll throw out 10.
Agreed.
9 or 10.
Yeah, it's agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we very well could, change the decisions. I think it's just because, again, in the first round of interviews, there wasn't a lot of back homework done in regards to the community. So that could be the reason why we're just like 10, 10, 10, 10. But they were a great, great team. And they just really took the time.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we're at the time for the meeting, and I feel like we've had a pretty good discussion. I think, is there a motion out there to close the meeting?
Before we do so, I just want to set a reminder. We're convening again on Monday at 11.
Monday at 11 it is.
For Scout. Okay. Just so folks remember, 11 to 12.
I have a motion to close the meeting.
Second the motion to end this meeting.
Okay, and then state your name and your vote.
Allie Robinson, yes.
Maureen McGarrigle, yes.
Chris Martin, yes.
Nate Shattuck, yes.
All right, it is 4:14.
4:14.
It looks
Thank you
like
all.
Chris Martin has a deputy there.
Yeah, you want to come in?
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.